through the May-June 2010 multiple choice for paper 1. Of course, before you watch this video, make sure that you've actually tackled the questions. You'll get far more out of it then, okay, and learn a lot more, and it'll improve your performance in your next multiple choice paper. Okay, let's get stuck in then. So we've got an hour for this part of the paper. Let's see how we can get through this then. Okay, right, so the diagram shows an economy's production possibility curve. And the question says, why does the curve slope downwards? We can see this constant return to scale opportunity cost. It suggests that resources are equally well suited to industrial and agricultural production, but that's not why the curve slopes downwards. Okay, so let's pick out what is going to be suitable here. Is it this? Agriculture and industry are subject to decreasing returns to scale. No, we can see it's a constant return to scale. Okay, resources are shared equally between industrial and agricultural production. Well, we don't know exactly what level of resources are actually being shared here. We don't know the actual output point. Finally, total resources available to the economy are finite. Well, that's the important one, because after all, the question says, why does the curve slope downwards? And all PPCs slope downwards. This is actually a bit of a distractor. You don't need this to answer the question, because all PPCs will slope downwards. So the answer is D. Okay, so let's move it on. Number 2, the winner of a TV quiz show is offered a choice of either £1,000 or the contents of one or other of 2 sealed boxes. She is told that one box contains £2,500 and the other box is empty. What is the opportunity cost to the individual of opting for the £1,000 prize? So they go for the £1,000 prize rather than the 50% chance of getting this, or the 50% chance of getting this. Okay, so therefore, if they opt for this £1,000 prize, the opportunity cost has to be either a 50% chance of winning 2,500 or a 50% chance of winning nothing. Okay, so let's see what we've got, and we can see that 50% chance of winning 2,500. Yeah, absolutely, that's the next best alternative. Okay, right, number 3. Let's just move that down. So what is not one of the roles performed by the price mechanism? So the price mechanism allocates, rations, incentivizes and signals. Okay, so is it communicate information about scarcity? Well, that's one of the key roles. Coordinating activity, well, it helps to incentivize and signal what should be done. To guide individuals' choices, we also see that there as well. So therefore it must be D. Yeah, and the price mechanism is not responsible for ensuring an equitable distribution of resources, and that's why markets can fail, or one of the reasons that markets can fail. Okay, number 4, the diagram shows an individual's indifference curve. What does the slope of the curve measure? Well, the slope of the curve measures the marginal rate of substitution, the rate at which you would substitute good Y for good X. Okay, so that's the really important aspect of an indifference curve. It's not saying what is an indifference curve, i.e. that the consumer is indifferent between different levels of consumption on the curve. It is simply saying what does the slope of the curve measure. So if we look through, yeah, well, that's a definition for what an indifference curve is. The opportunity cost, no, that's more about PPCs, as we just saw earlier. The amount of good Y the individual is willing to give up to obtain one more unit of good X. Okay, well, that sounds very accurate in terms of describing the marginal rate of substitutions. The answer is C. Okay, so next one, a firm's elasticity of supply is 0.4 at the original price of £10. The quantity supplied by the firm is 400 units. The market price then rises to £11. Okay, what will be the firm's revenue after the rise in price? Okay, let's take a little look at this then. So we've got to do some simple calculations here. Let's just try and show these. If I just move that up and give myself some more space here. Firstly, we've got to work out the price elasticity is supply change, the supply change that would take place. We know that price elasticity of supply is calculated by the percentage change in quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price. So let's have a look at what information we've actually got here. Well, we can see it's a £10 to £11, so when you look at a £1 change out of 10, so that's obviously 10%. Okay, so that's 10% change in price. We know further to that the price elasticity of supply is 0.4. Okay, so we get 0.4 out of this. So therefore, what must the answer be on the top? Well, 4 divided by 10 would be 0.4, of course. Okay, so that tells us that we're looking at a 4% change in the quantity supplied. Okay, so then we've got to consider the actual revenue. So we've got to work out what the actual revenue is. So if we simply do the price times the quantity sold, okay, this will mean that we've got a new price of £11, and we are now multiplying that through by our higher quantity. So we've got a 4% increase in the quantity. Okay, the original quantity was 400 units, but that has now increased by 4%. So we firstly got to work out what 4% is, and if you just multiply through, say by 0.04, okay, that will tell you that the answer is 16. You can do this in your head easily as well. So 10% of this would obviously be 40, 1% would be 4, okay, and multiply that 1% by 4. Okay, so yeah, the change is 16. Okay, so we've therefore got to look at a change of £11 times 416. So if we then put 11 times 416 in, then what we get out of that is a change of 4,576. Okay, so the answer would be B. Okay, next one. Okay, so this sort of question can often be a bit of a stumbling block. Right, the diagram shows the firm's average total cost curve. So let's just look at this to start with. We can see that this average total cost curve comes down as we would expect. Now, which diagram shows the firm's corresponding short-run marginal cost? Notice it says short-run, and it's obviously talking about marginal cost. We're very used to seeing almost like hockey stick style marginal cost curves, and you'd normally expect on your business economics diagrams to have your average cost looking something like that, and then your marginal cost would run through the bottom like so. Remember the relationship between these. Firstly, the marginal cost helps bring down the average total cost, and then the marginal cost brings up the average cost. Okay, so that's really important. So which diagram shows the firm's corresponding short-run marginal cost curve? Well, from the shape of this, we can see the marginal cost must be below the average total cost curve. So is it A? Well, no, it's not A. Is it B? Well, yes, B does go at a 0 rate. We don't know whether this is long run. It probably is, but we can't necessarily be sure, but this is certainly the short run outcome. So therefore this looks plausible. Let's have a look at the others. Well, this one goes kind of almost straight up, and yeah, it just doesn't really make sense with this 45-degree angle. And then of course we've got D, which is slightly more traditional in what you might see, but if you look at the curve shape, then I would certainly go for B there. Okay, zero marginal costs can happen, for instance, with cinemas, where they've got a short-run marginal cost of 0, because when they take on new customers, go from say 3 or 4 to 5 people in a screening, their increase in costs is negligible. Okay, next one then. What is the essential feature of a contestable market? Okay, and very easily we can see the answer straight away. Ease of entry and exit. That's what you need in a contestable market. Okay, so yes, the answer there would be A. Okay, number 8. These sorts of aims of firms diagrams often come up, and they often have a slight twist to them. Let's take a look. This diagram shows the cost and revenue curves of a monopolist. If he decides to maximize sales revenue subject to the constraint that profits do not fall below normal profit, which level of output will he produce? So we've got to remember here that a key principle of normal profit is that average costs equal average revenue. Okay, so do not fall below normal profit. That's really important you take note of that there. So if we look at the actual points where average cost equals average revenue, well, we've got it there. We can see that the sales maximization, or revenue maximization point, sorry, is here, which would actually create a loss. Average cost would be greater than the average revenue at that point. Okay, so this firm do not want anything below normal profit, so therefore it must be OQ3. Okay. Right. Number 9. So yeah, if you know your game theory, these ones are quite nice to answer. Profit payoff matrix shows how the profits of X and Y vary depending on the prices charged by the two firms. So we've got PY equals £20. Okay. And the price here is £10. Okay, so we can see charging a high price could lead to a good profit, or it could lead to a loss. Charging a low price, well, that looks like the more plausible outcome for firm Y. For firm X, we can see that they've got exactly the same sort of scenario here, and therefore the competitive market outcome would be this one, because you've got a choice here, 9 million or 0, or 5 million versus -2. So in the most plausible outcome here is this one. Okay, this would actually be as well a Nash equilibrium, because neither firm has an incentive to move away from this pricing decision of £10, because in doing so, say if X increased their price to £20, then we can see they make a loss of 2 million. Likewise for Y. So that would be a stable market outcome here. Okay, if this question had asked about a collusive market outcome, then you could see the outcome would be price £20. Okay, and that would be an unstable market equilibrium, because you can see Y would face the temptation to reduce its prices, as would X. Okay, so in the absence of collusion, what will be the X's profits? It will be 0. Okay. Right. Next question, number 10. In the diagram, okay, so we've got the marginal profit derived by a firm from successive units of output. Okay, indicates the external cost in the form of pollution inflicted on the rest of society by successive units of outcome. Okay, right. So in the absence of negotiations between the affected parties, this is going to be an important clause in this question, which outputs will be produced in the circumstances indicated in the table. So we can see that this is our marginal profit derived by the firm. So in essence, it seems like when they hit this point here, that is essentially the point where marginal cost would equal marginal revenue, and there would be no more marginal profit but a marginal loss. Okay, as we can see with this line going into the negative. So given that, then you could see that we don't have negotiations taking place between the affected parties, so the firm will want to produce right up to that bit, because then that squeezes out all of this profit. Yes, there's an external cost here, which we've got, and so we can firstly see we've narrowed this down to 2 choices already, OQ2 and C and D. So public has a legal right to prevent pollution. Well, actually, it seems like they don't have a legal right, because we don't have any negotiations which have actually taken place here. So therefore, let's just move that up so you can see that. We're looking at 0. Okay, so public has a legal right to prevent pollution at 0. Okay, they don't have a legal right to prevent pollution as things stand. Okay, so the answer will be C. Right, next one. The diagram shows the demand curve of a recreational facility, the consumption of which is non-rival. Okay, right, so we can see we've got this demand curve, we've got the price, we've got £10 multiplied by the current use would mean that we've currently got £1,000, which would be received by the government. So the facility is operated by the government and users are initially charged £10, which provides just sufficient revenue to cover the cost of providing the facility. What would be the increase in consumer surplus and the cost to the taxpayer if the government makes the facility available free of charge? Okay, so what would be the increase in consumer cost and the cost to the taxpayer? So we can see already that at this point it's £1,000 that's currently being taken by the government, by the users. So therefore the cost to the taxpayer is of course likely to be £10,000. Okay, so this means we're already down to 2 options. Okay, all right, so we're already looking at A and C. Just to move that up there. Okay, let's just see if I can fit all of that in. Right, okay, so then the next question really is what is the increase in consumer surplus? But we can see that these people can now consume this good, and they previously wouldn't have spent £10 on it. So perhaps we could use just an average here of 20. Well, we've got 20 more people, that are going to consume this product, and we can see that they're doing it at half the actual cost that was previously offered there. Okay, so we're not doing 20 times 10, okay, which would of course be 200. We're doing directly half of that. So therefore it's going to be £100. So therefore the increase in the consumer surplus would be 1100, and that leads us through to an answer of C there. Okay, right, number 12. Oh, sorry, I've skipped a page there. Okay, number 12. A country's energy producers are given permits which allow each producer to emit a given volume of pollution. What will be the effect on the volume of pollution and on the cost of pollution control of allowing the producers to trade the permits amongst themselves? So the effect on the volume of pollution would be really that there's no change, because there was already this permit system which was in operation, but now the difference is they're allowed to actually trade their options. Okay, now this might also help to reduce the costs of administering this permit-based system, because it's now a market-based system. So there could actually be a decrease in the cost of pollution control. Okay, all right, so therefore we are looking at C. Okay, right, number 13. So a cost-benefit study estimates that building a new road bridge would produce a net social benefit of £10 million. However, an investment appraisal carried out on behalf of a private construction company concludes that the bridge will not be profitable. Okay, so it's not going to be profitable. So why could this be? Is it because a lower discount rate was used in the private investment appraisal? No, it would be more likely that a higher discount rate was used in the private investment appraisal if it wasn't going to be profitable. This would make it more profitable remember it's the opposite of counting interest. Okay, so if you're discounting at a higher rate, at a lower rate, then you're going to make it more profitable. Building the bridge will give rise to negative externalities. Well, this has already been undertaken in the cost-benefit study, indicating a net social benefit. So no, it's not that. The benefits to potential users are non-excludable. Okay, so benefits to potential users are non-excludable. Well, again, just think about the nature of this. It's a road bridge, and therefore we know that road bridges often have toll booths, so you can actually exclude people in terms of the consumption of that. Okay, so total user benefits will be greater than the amount paid in toll charges. So this seems like the most plausible answer, really. Okay, so we've got benefits which are far greater than the actual tolls that they'd be able to actually pay. Okay, so that is certainly the most plausible answer there. Okay, right, let's have a look at 14. In which situation is a trade union most likely to be able to negotiate a wage increase for its members employed in a local firm without resulting in a loss of jobs? Okay, so this would, of course, if you know your labour economics, you will know that a trade union or a national minimum wage theoretically can actually increase employment against monopsony employers or in imperfect labour markets. Okay, so let's just skim through, see if we've got anything on monopsony. We have the firm has a monopsony position within the local labour market, and therefore C is going to be the answer. Can't be this one, because local unemployment would reduce the actual bargaining power of the trade union. Firms' labour costs are a high proportion of its total costs. Well, then they're going to want to actually substitute labour for capital goods. The demand for the firm's products is price elastic. No. Okay, so price sensitivity is really important here. Okay, so the